There's an ancient well hidden beneath the earth, deep and still, filled with the clearest water you could imagine. For centuries, this water has flowed freely, nourishing all who knew how to reach it. But over time, something happened. Leaves began to fall, one by one, covering the surface. At first, just a few dry leaves floating gently across the water. Then more and more, year after year, layer upon layer, until the water could no longer rise. The well didn't run dry. The water was still there, pure and life-giving. But it was buried, hidden beneath so many dead leaves that no one could reach it anymore. A young monk once approached his teacher with exhaustion in his eyes. He said he felt drained, weary, as though something vital inside him had faded. The teacher took him to that ancient well and asked him to look inside. The monk peered down and saw nothing but darkness and decay. "Where is the water?" he asked. "It's still there," the teacher replied gently. "It has always been there. But you've allowed too many dead leaves to gather on the surface. You see, your energy has not disappeared. It's simply been covered by the habits you repeat without awareness, by the old thoughts that cling to you like dust, by the emotions you refuse to release. Clear away the leaves, and the water will flow again. This is the truth Buddhism teaches us about the heaviness we carry as we grow older. It's not age that weakens us. It's the accumulation of unconscious patterns, the unexamined beliefs, the emotions we bury instead of releasing. These are the dead leaves that block the well of our inner vitality. When we stop noticing them, when we let them pile up year after year, we begin to feel tired, disconnected, and dull. Not because our essence has diminished, but because we've lost access to it. So today, let us walk together through 12 habits that quietly drain your strength and cloud your spirit. These are not grand failures or obvious mistakes. They are subtle, almost invisible, the kind of patterns that creep into daily life so slowly you barely notice them taking root. But once you see them clearly, once you understand how they block your inner well, you can begin to remove them, leaf by leaf, until the water flows freely once more. 1. Overthinking. Thinking is not the problem. The mind is a tool, a beautiful instrument meant to serve you. But when thinking becomes a habit that runs on its own, when thoughts spiral endlessly without resolution or rest, they drain you like water leaking from a cracked vessel. Buddhist teachers have long observed that overthinking is not the same as problem-solving. In fact, overthinking often prevents solutions from emerging. The Buddha taught that the mind left unchecked becomes like a wild monkey, jumping from branch to branch, never still, never satisfied. This restless mental activity doesn't lead to clarity, it leads to exhaustion. Research confirms what ancient wisdom has always known. Studies show that overthinking activates stress pathways in the brain, keeping the nervous system in a constant state of mild agitation. When you replay conversations that are finished, when you analyze outcomes that haven't happened yet, when you turn over the same worry again and again without acting on it, you're not solving anything. You're simply burning energy that could be directed toward presence, toward action, toward peace. As you age, this habit becomes especially costly. The mind has accumulated decades of memories, regrets, and fears. Without mindfulness, these thoughts can dominate your inner landscape, making each day feel heavy before it even begins. You wake up tired because you've been thinking all night. You eat a meal without tasting it because your mind is somewhere else. You miss the sunset, the kind word from a friend, the warmth of your own breath, all because you're lost in the endless loop of thought. The Buddhist practice of mindfulness offers a way out. It teaches you to observe thoughts without clinging to them. When a thought arises, you notice it. You don't fight it or believe it automatically. You simply watch it pass, like a cloud drifting across the sky. This isn't suppression, it's discernment. You're learning to distinguish between useful thinking and mental noise. And in that discernment, you begin to reclaim your energy. The well beneath the leaves starts to reveal itself. When you catch yourself overthinking, pause, take one full breath. Ask yourself honestly, is this thought helping me solve something, or is it just stirring up more confusion? Most of the time, you'll realize the thought is just a habit, a pattern your mind repeats because it doesn't know how to be still. And that's when you can choose differently. Return to your breath. Return to the present moment. Let the thought go. This simple practice, repeated daily, will clear away more dead leaves than you can imagine. 2. Holding resentment. There's a weight you carry that no one else can see. It's the weight of old wounds, old betrayals, old injustices that never quite healed. You tell yourself you've moved on, but somewhere deep inside, the hurt remains. This is resentment, and it's one of the heaviest leaves that can cover your inner well. Buddhist psychology identifies resentment as a form of clinging, a refusal to let go of pain. The word for this in Sanskrit is upanaha, which means withholding forgiveness and clinging to the intention to cause harm, even if that harm is only in your mind. Resentment doesn't punish the person who hurt you. It punishes you. Every time you replay what happened, every time you feel that surge of anger or bitterness, you're reopening the wound. You're keeping yourself trapped in a moment that's already passed. And as you age, this burden grows heavier. Research shows that holding resentment impacts physical health as well, contributing to elevated blood pressure, weakened immune function, and chronic stress. It affects sleep, mood, and even memory. You think you're protecting yourself by holding on to the hurt, but you're actually imprisoning yourself with it. Forgiveness is not about saying what happened was acceptable. It's not about reconciling with someone who harmed you or pretending the pain never existed. Forgiveness, in Buddhist teaching, is about releasing the grip resentment has on your heart. It's about recognizing that the past is gone, and continuing to carry its weight serves no purpose except to drain your vitality. A Tibetan Buddhist story tells of two monks who meet years after being tortured in prison. One asks the other, "Have you forgiven them?" The second monk replies, "I will never forgive them, never." The first monk says gently, "Well, I guess they still have you in prison, don't they?" This is the truth of resentment. It keeps you locked in the past, replaying scenes that cannot be changed, holding on to emotions that only harm you now. When you choose to forgive, you're not doing it for the other person. You're doing it for yourself. You're saying, "I refuse to let this old pain continue blocking my peace." You're clearing away another layer of dead leaves so the water can rise again. Begin by acknowledging the hurt honestly. Don't minimize it or rush past it. Feel what you feel without judgment. Then, when you're ready, try this simple practice. Place your hand over your heart and say quietly, "I release you. I release this pain. It no longer serves me." You may need to repeat this many times. Forgiveness is not a single moment, but a gradual process. But each time you choose release over resentment, you lighten your burden, you free your energy, you return to the well. 3. Speaking from fear. Words are not neutral. They carry energy, intention, vibration. When you speak from a place of fear, doubt, or scarcity, your words don't just reflect your inner state, they reinforce it. They build walls instead of bridges. They create contraction instead of expansion. This habit of speaking from fear often goes unnoticed because it feels justified. You're just being realistic, you tell yourself. You're protecting yourself from disappointment. But what you're actually doing is programming your mind to expect the worst, to see limitation where possibility exists, to shrink your world down to what feels safe. Buddhist teachings emphasize right speech as one of the essential practices on the path to freedom. Right speech means speaking truthfully, kindly, and at the appropriate time. It means your words arise from presence and clarity, not from reactive emotion or fear-based thinking. When you complain constantly, when you speak negatively about yourself or others, when your conversations revolve around what's wrong rather than what's possible, you're not just describing your reality, you're creating it. Your mind listens to your words and believes them. Your nervous system responds to the tone and energy behind them. As you age, this habit can become deeply ingrained. You've had more experiences of disappointment, more evidence that things don't always work out. And so, your speech becomes cautious, protective, pessimistic. You say things like, "I'm too old for that," or "Nothing ever changes," or "People can't be trusted." Each time you speak these words, you're layering another dead leaf over your inner well. You're telling yourself a story of limitation, and your life begins to reflect that story back to you. The shift begins with awareness. Notice what you say, especially the casual comments you make without thinking. Notice the tone you use when talking about yourself, your body, your future. Are you speaking from love and possibility, or from fear and resignation? When you catch yourself speaking from fear, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what would I say if I trusted life instead of fearing it? What would I say if I spoke from my deepest wisdom rather than my worried mind? This doesn't mean forcing false positivity or denying difficulties. It means choosing words that open doors rather than close them. It means speaking with awareness of the power your voice carries. Try this practice for just one day. Speak only words that nourish, encourage, and uplift, whether to yourself or others. Notice how different your inner landscape feels when your speech becomes intentional. You'll discover that words can either bury the well or help clear it. Choose wisely. 4. Chasing perfection. Perfection is an illusion, yet so many spend their entire lives chasing it. The need to control everything, to have every detail exactly right, to never make a mistake, this relentless pursuit doesn't lead to excellence. It leads to exhaustion, anxiety, and a deep sense of inadequacy that never goes away. Buddhist philosophy teaches the principle of impermanence, the understanding that everything changes, nothing remains fixed or perfect. When you chase perfection, you're fighting against the fundamental nature of reality itself. You're trying to freeze what is meant to flow. This habit becomes especially draining as you age. Your body is changing. Your energy is different. You can't do things exactly as you once did. If you cling to perfectionism, every small change feels like a failure. Every limitation feels like a loss. But the truth is, perfection was never the goal. Presence is the goal. Authenticity is the goal. Doing your best in each moment, without attachment to a specific outcome, is the goal. When you release the need for perfection, you release an enormous burden. You stop bracing against life and start flowing with it. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from clinging, and one of the most painful forms of clinging is the attachment to how things should be. Perfectionists live in a constant state of tension because reality rarely matches their expectations. They miss the beauty of what is because they're always focused on what isn't. A flower doesn't try to be perfect. It simply blooms as it is, and in that natural unfolding, it reveals its true beauty. You are no different. This doesn't mean you stop caring about quality or effort. It means you stop measuring your worth by impossible standards. It means you allow yourself to be human, to make mistakes, to learn and grow without harsh self-judgment. When perfectionism starts to tighten its grip, pause and ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? Usually beneath the perfectionism is a fear of not being good enough, of being judged or rejected. But your worth is not determined by how perfectly you perform. Your worth is inherent, unchanging, already complete. Practice gentleness with yourself. When something doesn't go as planned, instead of criticism, offer compassion. Say to yourself, I did my best, and that is enough. This isn't lowering your standards, it's raising your consciousness. It's clearing away the dead leaves of self-judgment and allowing your natural vitality to emerge. The well doesn't need to be perfect to give water. It just needs to be clear. 5. Going to bed with a restless mind. Sleep is sacred. It's the time when your body repairs itself, when your mind processes the day, when your spirit finds rest. But how many nights do you carry the entire day into your bed? The worries, the unfinished tasks, the conversations that didn't go well, all of it swirling through your mind as you try to sleep. This habit of taking a restless mind to bed is one of the most draining patterns you can develop. It prevents true rest, leaving you exhausted even after 8 hours of lying down. Buddhist monks have understood this for centuries. In monastic life, there are specific practices for ending the day, rituals that help the mind settle before sleep. They spend time in evening meditation, releasing the day's events. They practice noble silence, refraining from unnecessary talk. They cultivate the perception of light, visualizing brightness even as they close their eyes, so that awareness remains clear and calm, even during sleep. These practices aren't just religious traditions. They're profound psychological tools for maintaining mental and physical health. Research on sleep and aging shows that many older adults struggle with sleep not because their bodies require less rest, but because their minds have become habitually agitated. They've spent decades taking worries to bed, and now their nervous systems don't know how to settle naturally. The practice of releasing the day before sleep is essential. It's like washing your hands before eating. You wouldn't want to carry the dirt of the day into your meal. Why would you carry the mental dirt of the day into your rest? Before you go to bed tonight, try this simple practice. Sit on the edge of your bed for just 2 minutes. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths. With each exhale, consciously release one thing from your day. It could be a worry, a conversation, a task you didn't finish. You don't need to solve anything. You just need to set it down. Say quietly to yourself, I release this. Tomorrow is another day. Then lie down and place your attention on your breath. Count each inhale and exhale up to 10, then start over. If your mind wanders, gently return to counting. This practice signals to your nervous system that it's safe to rest now. Many people resist this practice because they believe their worries are keeping them safe, that if they stop thinking about problems, they'll forget something important. But the opposite is true. A rested mind is far more capable of solving problems than an exhausted one. Sleep is not a luxury, it's a necessity, and the quality of your sleep directly impacts the quality of your energy, your mood, your health, and your clarity. Clear this habit away like a heavy dead leaf, and you'll notice the water of vitality rising again. 6. Comparing yourself. Comparison is one of the most subtle and destructive habits that quietly weakens you over time. It seems harmless at first, even natural. You see someone else's success, beauty, or happiness, and you measure yourself against it. But this constant measurement creates an inner environment of inadequacy and discontent. The Buddha taught that comparing yourself to others brings no peace. It only generates suffering. When you compare, you're always either superior or inferior, and neither position is true. Neither leads to genuine self-acceptance or inner freedom. As you age, comparison can become especially painful. You compare your current self to your younger self, your body to what it used to be, your energy to memories of when you felt stronger. You compare yourself to others who seem to be aging more gracefully, who still look young, who have accomplished more. Each comparison is like placing another dead leaf over the well. You lose sight of your own unique path, your own inherent worth that has nothing to do with how you measure up to anyone else. Buddhist wisdom teaches the practice of mudita, which is sympathetic joy. This means genuinely celebrating the happiness and success of others without feeling diminished by it. It means recognizing that someone else's light doesn't dim yours. Their accomplishment doesn't mean you've failed. Their beauty doesn't make you less beautiful. When you cultivate mudita, comparison naturally falls away. You begin to see that every person has their own journey, their own struggles and gifts, and comparing these journeys is meaningless. The antidote to comparison is gratitude for what is uniquely yours. Not what you wish you had, not what someone else possesses, but what is actually present in your life right now. When you feel the urge to compare, pause and ask yourself, what am I grateful for today? It could be something as simple as the ability to breathe, to walk, to see the sky. When you anchor yourself in appreciation for your own existence, comparison loses its power. You stop looking sideways at others and start looking inward at the richness of your own experience. Practice this daily. Each morning or evening, name 3 things about yourself or your life that you appreciate. Not accomplishments or possessions, but simple truths. I am grateful for my resilience. I am grateful for the kindness in my heart. I am grateful for this day. Over time, this practice rewires your mind. You begin to see yourself with compassion instead of judgment. And when you see yourself clearly, without the distortion of comparison, you discover that you've always been enough, exactly as you are. The well was never empty, it was just covered. 7. Saying yes when you mean no. Every time you say yes when your heart says no, you betray yourself. It seems like a small thing, a minor compromise. But over time, these small betrayals accumulate into a profound disconnection from your own truth. You lose touch with what you actually want, what you actually need. You become a stranger to yourself, living according to other people's expectations, while your own inner voice grows quieter and quieter. This habit doesn't just drain your energy, it erodes your sense of self. Buddhist teachings emphasize the importance of integrity, of living in alignment with your deepest values. When you say yes to things that don't serve you, to obligations that exhaust you, to relationships that drain you, you're not being kind or generous. You're being dishonest. You're teaching others that your boundaries don't matter, that your needs are less important than theirs. And perhaps most damaging, you're teaching yourself that your own truth isn't worth honoring. As you age, this pattern can become deeply entrenched. You've spent decades trying to please others, trying to be seen as helpful, trying to avoid conflict or disappointment. But the cost is your vitality. Every false yes adds another layer over the well. You feel resentful, tired, trapped by commitments you never truly chose. The practice of saying no with grace and clarity is not selfish, it's self-respect. It's reclaiming your energy so you can offer it genuinely from a place of fullness rather than depletion. Start by noticing when you feel pressured to say yes. What happens in your body? Does your chest tighten? Does your stomach clench? These physical signals are your inner wisdom trying to communicate. Listen to them. When someone asks something of you, give yourself permission to pause before answering. You don't need to respond immediately. You can say, "Let me think about that and get back to you." This pause gives you space to check in with yourself, to ask what you truly want. Practice saying no simply and kindly. You don't need to justify or explain excessively. As simple, "I appreciate you thinking of me, but I'm not able to do that right now," is complete and respectful. Notice what happens when you honor your truth. At first, there may be discomfort or guilt, but underneath that discomfort is relief. You're finally telling the truth. You're finally treating yourself as someone whose needs and limits matter. And when you clear away this particular dead leaf, you'll feel a surge of energy return. The well begins to flow freely when you stop betraying yourself. 8. Being disconnected from the body. So many people live almost entirely in their heads, treating the body as if it were merely a vehicle that carries the mind around. They ignore its signals, override its needs, and push through pain or fatigue as if acknowledging physical limitations were a sign of weakness. But Buddhist wisdom teaches that the body is not separate from the mind or spirit. It's not an obstacle to spiritual life. It's the very ground of awareness, the temple in which consciousness dwells. When you disconnect from your body, you disconnect from a vital source of wisdom and energy. This disconnection often deepens with age. You may have spent decades ignoring physical sensations, numbing discomfort, or simply being too busy to notice how you actually feel. But the body never stops communicating. Pain, stiffness, fatigue, tension, these are not just inconveniences, they're messages. They're your body trying to tell you what it needs. When you ignore these messages, they don't go away. They intensify. Chronic pain, illness, and exhaustion are often the body's last resort, its loudest attempt to get your attention. The practice of body awareness, what Buddhists call contemplation of the body, is one of the most direct ways to clear away the dead leaves and return to vitality. This doesn't mean obsessing over every ache or becoming hypochondriacal. It means developing a gentle, friendly relationship with your physical form. It means checking in regularly. How does my body feel right now? What does it need? Movement, rest, nourishment, simple attention. Try this practice daily. Sit or lie down comfortably and bring your awareness to your body. Start at the top of your head and slowly scan down through your neck, shoulders, chest, abdomen, hips, legs, and feet. Don't try to fix or change anything. Just notice, where do you feel tension? Where do you feel ease? Where is there numbness or disconnection? This simple act of attention is profoundly healing. You're saying to your body, "I see you. I'm here with you. You matter." When you reconnect with your body, you often discover that much of what you thought was aging is actually accumulated tension, stored emotion, or simply years of neglect. As you bring awareness and kindness to your physical form, it begins to respond. Energy that was locked in chronic tension gets released. Breath that was shallow becomes full. Movement that was stiff becomes fluid. The body wants to be healthy. It wants to serve you well. But it can only do that when you're paying attention, when you're listening, when you're present. This is not vanity or self-indulgence. This is basic respect for the vessel of your life. 9. Repressing emotions. Emotions are energy in motion. They arise, they peak, and they naturally subside, as long as you allow them to flow. But when you repress emotions, when you push them down and refuse to feel them, that energy doesn't disappear. It gets stuck. It becomes stagnant. It turns into tension in your body, restlessness in your mind, and a heaviness in your spirit that you can't quite name. This habit of emotional repression is one of the most exhausting patterns you can carry. Many people were taught, especially in earlier generations, that emotions are weakness, that crying is shameful, that anger is dangerous, that fear should be hidden. And so they learned to swallow their feelings, to present a composed exterior while inner turmoil churned beneath the surface. But Buddhist psychology recognizes that emotions are not the enemy. They're information. They're natural responses to life. The problem isn't feeling emotions. The problem is clinging to them or running from them instead of allowing them to move through naturally. When you repress emotions, they don't go away. They accumulate like dead leaves covering the well of your vitality. Unexpressed grief becomes depression. Unacknowledged anger becomes resentment or illness. Denied fear becomes chronic anxiety. The body keeps the score of every emotion you've refused to feel. Research in psychology confirms that emotional repression is linked to weakened immune function, higher rates of chronic illness, and decreased overall well-being. Your emotions need to be felt and released, not stored and suppressed. The practice of emotional awareness begins with giving yourself permission to feel. When sadness arises, let yourself cry. When anger surfaces, acknowledge it without acting it out harmfully. When fear appears, sit with it instead of running. This doesn't mean wallowing or getting lost in emotion. It means allowing the wave to come, to peak, and to pass. Think of emotions like weather. A storm moves through the sky, but it doesn't stay forever. If you allow emotions to flow naturally, they complete their cycle and move on. Create space for emotional release. This might mean journaling, speaking with a trusted friend, or simply sitting alone and allowing whatever wants to surface to come up without judgment. You might be surprised by what emerges. Grief from decades ago. Anger you've carried since childhood. Joy you didn't let yourself fully feel. As these emotions release, you'll feel lighter, clearer, more alive. The well beneath the leaves begins to reveal itself once more. Your energy returns because it's no longer locked in the prison of suppressed feeling. Allow yourself to be human. Allow yourself to feel. This is not weakness. This is freedom. 10. Eating without awareness. Food is not just fuel. It's a gift from the earth, a connection to all life, a moment to practice presence and gratitude. But how often do you eat while distracted, rushed, barely tasting what you consume? This habit of eating without awareness is more than just poor nutrition. It's a disconnection from one of life's most fundamental acts. When you eat mindlessly, you miss the nourishment not just of the food, but of the experience itself. You eat, but you don't truly receive. Buddhist monks practice mindful eating as a form of meditation. They eat slowly, in silence, with full attention to each bite. They contemplate where the food came from, the earth that grew it, the rain that nourished it, the hands that prepared it. This isn't just ritual, it's a recognition that eating connects you to the entire web of life. When you bring awareness to eating, the meal becomes sacred, not because the food is special, but because you are fully present. Research shows that eating mindfully improves digestion, reduces overeating, and increases satisfaction with food. When you eat quickly or distractedly, your body doesn't register fullness until you've already consumed too much. When you eat with anxiety or guilt, your nervous system shifts into stress mode, which impairs digestion. But when you eat slowly, with gratitude and attention, your body relaxes. Digestion improves. You feel nourished, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Try this practice at your next meal. Before you begin eating, pause. Look at the food before you. Take a moment to appreciate it. Then, take your first bite slowly. Chew thoroughly, noticing the texture, the taste, the sensation. Put your utensil down between bites. If your mind wanders to worries or tasks, gently bring it back to the act of eating. This isn't about perfection, it's about presence. You might discover that you need less food to feel satisfied. You might notice that certain foods make you feel heavy, while others give you energy. You might realize that much of your eating is driven by emotion rather than hunger. All of this awareness is valuable. It helps you make choices that truly nourish you. When you eat with awareness, you're not just feeding your body, you're honoring it. And that simple act of honoring clears away another layer of dead leaves. The well of vitality responds to your attention. 11. Speaking ill of others. The words you speak about others shape your inner world more than you realize. When you criticize, gossip, or speak harshly about someone, you're not just affecting them, you're poisoning your own mind and heart. This habit of speaking ill of others creates a corrosive inner environment. It trains your attention to focus on flaws, mistakes, and negativity. Over time, this perspective becomes your default lens through which you see everything, including yourself. Buddhist teachings on right speech make it clear that harsh words return first to the speaker. When you judge others, you're reinforcing a judgmental mindset that will eventually turn inward. When you speak with cruelty about someone else, you're normalizing cruelty as a way of relating. The energy of your words doesn't dissipate after you speak them. It lingers in your consciousness, shaping how you think and feel. Every critical word is like a dead leaf falling onto the well, blocking the flow of compassion and clarity. This doesn't mean you can't discern or speak truthfully about difficulties. It means you do so without malice, without the intention to harm or diminish. There's a difference between saying someone's behavior was hurtful and saying someone is worthless. There's a difference between expressing disappointment and engaging in character assassination. The intention behind your words matters. Are you speaking to understand, to heal, to create clarity? Or are you speaking to vent, to feel superior, to tear someone down? As you age, this habit can become deeply ingrained. You've accumulated judgments about many people over many years. Perhaps you've been hurt and criticism feels like protection. But it's not. It's a barrier between you and peace. The practice is to catch yourself when critical words are about to leave your mouth. Pause. Ask yourself, is this true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? If the answer is no to any of these questions, let the words go unsaid. Instead, practice speaking with compassion. When you see someone struggling, instead of judgment, offer understanding. When someone makes a mistake, instead of criticism, offer patience. This shift isn't about being naive or ignoring harm. It's about choosing to see with wise and compassionate eyes. As you change your speech, you change your heart. And as your heart softens, your energy returns. The well clears, and the water of kindness begins to flow freely once more. 12. Forgetting gratitude. Of all the habits that weaken you, perhaps none is more insidious than the habit of taking life for granted. When you forget gratitude, when you focus only on what's wrong or missing or broken, you lose sight of the abundance that surrounds you even in difficulty. This habitual ingratitude doesn't just make you unhappy, it drains your vitality, because the mind that sees only lack becomes a mind that feels constantly empty, no matter how much you have. Buddhist teachers have long emphasized that suffering comes not from what we lack, but from craving what we don't have while ignoring what we do. The practice of gratitude is the antidote to this endless hunger. Gratitude doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It means recognizing the gifts that are present even amidst challenges. It means acknowledging the simple miracles you've stopped noticing. Your breath, your heartbeat, the fact that you woke up this morning. These are not small things. They're everything. Research in psychology consistently shows that gratitude practices improve mental health, increase resilience, and even enhance physical well-being. People who regularly practice gratitude report better sleep, stronger immune systems, and more positive emotions. Why? Because gratitude shifts your attention from scarcity to abundance. It trains your mind to notice what's working rather than fixating on what isn't. And that shift in attention changes your entire experience of life. The practice is simple but profound. Each day, take a few moments to name 3 things you're grateful for. Don't repeat the same things mechanically. Really look for what's present. It could be the warmth of the sun on your face, a kind word from a stranger, the taste of your morning tea. Let yourself feel the gratitude, not just think it. Place your hand on your heart and breathe into that feeling of appreciation. This is not positive thinking or denial. This is seeing clearly what is actually here, what has always been here, beneath the complaints and worries. As you cultivate gratitude, something remarkable happens. The dead leaves begin to clear, all on their own. Resentment softens, anxiety eases. The sense of being burdened by life transforms into a recognition of being held by life. You realize that even in difficulty there is support. Even in pain there is beauty. Even in loss there is love. The well of your inner vitality was never empty. It was simply hidden beneath the habit of ingratitude. And now, as you remember to give thanks, the water rises freely once more. So here you are, having walked through these 12 habits, these dead leaves that have been quietly covering the well of your vitality, overthinking, holding resentment, speaking from fear, chasing perfection, going to bed with a restless mind, comparing yourself, saying yes when you mean no, being disconnected from your body, repressing emotions, eating without awareness, speaking ill of others, forgetting gratitude. Each one seems small on its own, but together they create the weight that so many carry as they age, the weight that makes life feel heavy, joyless, exhausting. But now you know the truth. Your energy has not disappeared. Your vitality has not faded with time. It has simply been covered, layer by layer, by unconscious patterns and unexamined habits. And just as those leaves accumulated gradually, they can be removed gradually, not through force or harsh self-criticism, but through gentle awareness, through choosing differently one moment at a time. The ancient well is still there. The water is still pure, still life-giving. All you need to do is clear away what's covering it. Notice the habits, witness them without judgment, and then, with compassion and patience, let them go. Each habit you release is a leaf lifted from the surface. Each moment of awareness is a step toward freedom. And slowly, surely, the water begins to rise. This is not about perfection, it's about presence. It's about waking up to how you've been living and making conscious choices to live differently. It's about treating yourself with the kindness and respect you deserve. It's about honoring your energy, your time, your one precious life, because you are not meant to diminish as you age. You are meant to clarify, to deepen, to become more truly yourself. The well is waiting. Your vitality is waiting. It has always been there, beneath the surface, ready to flow the moment you clear the way. So begin today. Choose one habit, just one. Bring your attention to it. Notice when it arises, and with each small act of awareness, with each gentle release, you are clearing the well. You are returning to the source. You are coming home to yourself. And that, dear friend, is when everything begins to change. Not because you've added something new, but because you've removed what was never truly yours to carry. The water rises, the spirit lightens, and life, in all its simple beauty, reveals itself once more. May you walk this path with patience and grace. May you remember your own strength, and may the well of your inner vitality flow freely, now and always.